Strike while the iron is hot. Go at it hammer and tongs. Too many irons in the fire. Don't lose your temper, and even has a nice ring to it. These are some of the idioms of blacksmithing that have entered our language. Many words and phrases from craft are part of our everyday speech. Because craft used to be part of lots of people's everyday life, not just as recreation, but as vocation. 4 years ago, when I started learning blacksmithing, part of what I learned was the intimate relationship in craft between teacher and student. It wasn't just enough for me to hear what my teacher said and understand it in a theoretical sense, be able to pass a test about it. I had to see what he did. I had to see how he held his hammer and how it landed, how he held the tongs and how he moved his body. And then he had to watch me to correct what I was doing, to make sure I understood it and got it, as his teacher had watched him before. Because mostly what my teacher was doing wasn't teaching me techniques and skills he himself had developed. He was teaching me the skills and techniques that his teacher had taught him. Sure, my teacher, he's a smart guy. He added to the knowledge. We all learn from more than one source. But mostly in blacksmithing, the skills are being passed on. I've come to think any craft is like that. Learning to cook, learning sewing or dancing or bricklaying. It's not enough to hear and understand. You have to connect head and body and do it, which was a big change for me. I've done most of my previous learning in a classroom. But craft-style instruction used to be the way most people learned things. Think of Jesus' day. Yes, there were classrooms and there was classroom learning, but most people learned the things they knew, their trades, their crafts, and their skills directly from other people. The Bible wasn't just in a different political or religious culture, it was in a different material culture as well. In learning blacksmithing, the idea of beating your spears into pruning hooks hit me in a different way. It takes about the same skills to make a spear or a pruning hook. But back then, what was precious was the metal. So you could either have a spear or you could have a pruning hook, but you couldn't have both. During the pandemic, I started baking because everyone else was doing it, and I'm fundamentally not a creative person. And one day, as I was baking, it hit me. The yeast goes in the bread, and it multiplies and makes the bread grow. And it was far from the most original insight, but I understood it in a new way because I was doing it. I think there's so much like that. I imagine learning to farm or to fish with nets or to shepherd or to sow or to make wine would have the same effect. Understanding that different material culture of the Bible opens up new ways to understand Scripture. And any new way of understanding Scripture is a new way to pass it on. Since crafts like blacksmithing are in danger of dying out, when you are taught, it is made clear to you that you are not taught for your own benefit, to hold on to it. You are meant to learn it, practice it, develop it, learn new techniques, and find new and different teachers, add your own twist, and then pass it on. Always pass it on. Like the faith and the church. Everything I know about Christianity, I know because someone taught me. Not just the academic knowledge either. I know how to pray because someone told me to fold my hands, bow my head, and pray. I know the hymns because I heard them sung. I know how to forgive because people forgave me. I learned how to hope by watching people hope. In blacksmithing, there are really only about 5 or 6 things you can do to hot metal. And the difference between a novice blacksmith and a master blacksmith is not that the master knows some secret 7th technique. It's that they've actually mastered the techniques and can put them together well, sometimes in new and unique ways. I think sometimes that the church itself is seeking to pass on some very basic skills and knowledge. Prayer, forgiveness, justice, serving others, worship, reading, understanding, and then applying Scripture. And like in craft, the new learn it from the experienced, and the fundamental skills and truths do not change. How we apply them does. Even when we want the church to change, we are using the tools given to us. We are building on the foundation and applying them in new ways. One of the things I can safely say is no blacksmith made a bottle opener before 1892, because the crown bottle cap wasn't invented until 1892. So sometime after that, someone made the first hand-forged bottle opener. But all the techniques they used were there waiting for them to put it into this new thing. We received the church and the faith from those who went before us. We honor them when we learn the lessons they have for us. But we also honor them by applying what they taught us to do new things, to keep the church and the faith alive and impactful into the future. The church is generative. It is being passed down through time. Each generation, we carry the lessons and victories and failures of the past. Each generation puts its own stamp on it, has to figure out how to apply it in its time and in its place. And each generation trusts it, sometimes boldly and sometimes hesitantly, to future generations. Let us be proud of and honor the good we have received and those who taught it to us, and the lessons we learned. Let us take it and let us build on what it was. Let's pass it on, which is the much harder work to pass it on, to trust it to the future. Think of that first blacksmith to make a bottle opener. It was like late 1892, and the people around him were like, wow, you can open a bottle with that. 130 years later, a hand-forged bottle opener is something that every blacksmith I know has made dozens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of them. They're not new anymore. Even if right now we imagine ourselves as the cool kids, doing things the new and cool way, someday, the things we do, as creative as they are, will be the old way. We will be the old craftspeople doing things the old-fashioned way. We will become the people rooted in the past who can't quite understand and envision the future. Because that's just the way of all things. For a bit over 4 years, I have practiced the craft of blacksmithing. For just under 10, I have practiced the craft of pastoring. For several decades, I have practiced what it means to be a Christian. In all those areas, I am grateful for everyone, some of whom are in this room, who have come alongside me and taught me something. I'm grateful for those lessons, and I know I have many more teachers in my future, the people who are going to come after me and speak here at least. I'm grateful, too, for those people who have let me come alongside them and teach them something I know, to pass on something I learned to them. I'm grateful for that. I can't wait to see what new things you forge out of the tools we've received. Thank you very much.